they just aren't for me. I'm just not interested in cool. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy. The things that I don't like in books. Yeah. So this is a video idea that I have been planning on doing for a few months now. I saw something very similar to this on Madison May's channel from Paperback, the Princess of Paperbacks, and she did like tropes that she liked and disliked, and I wanted to talk about things that I specifically didn't like or did like in books. Today we're going to be talking about things that I don't like in books, and then in a few days we'll have like a part 2, which is the things that I do like in books. And I'm saying things because not all of these are tropes. Now there are some tropes, not particularly on the dislike side, but there's a lot of tropes in the love video, which we'll get to. But I just wanted to say things because a lot of these are plot things that if I read it in a synopsis or if I hear someone talking about it and they say that it includes these specific things, I'm usually out and I don't want to read that book. It's just like a little click in my brain that I was like, I'm no longer interested in it because of this specific thing. And they're all plot-based things. There are exceptions to the rules, obviously, because there are some books that shouldn't work but do, and I think we all have those books. But generally speaking, these are things that do not work for me. So I've only got a handful, so this should be a relatively short video, so let's just get into it. I don't know what all of these random hand movements are, but you know, it's fine. The very, very first one is, I think, very obvious, and that is if it involves sports, I'm out. If it's like a high school book and sports are part of it, that's fine, but if like the entire plot revolves around playing a sport, I'm usually out. They just like, I'm not a big sports person. I'm not. I don't particularly love movies with sports in it. Now, there are some very good sports movies out there, do not get me wrong. There are. But I usually steer clear of them unless someone else makes me watch them. And it's the same thing with books. There are some things, like, for example, there's that graphic novel series Check Please, which is about hockey, which really intrigues me, which is odd because, like, sport. But in general, if it revolves around, like, the main plot point is a team or a sports team, I'm usually not interested, and I usually, like, the minute I read that in a synopsis, I, like, put it down and I'm no longer intrigued by that story. I just don't. It's not my thing. The next one is a little tricky, and that is anything involving celebrities. Now, this is specifically like rock stars and musicians and things like that are usually not my thing. Again, there are exceptions to the rules. I really like classic Hollywood stories, so like memoirs from actresses or actors that are in classic Hollywood. I really like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which follows like a huge celebrity in that kind of classic Hollywood style. But like, it's mostly rock stars. Like, if anything has to do with a rock star, I'm not interested. Like, I'm not interested in reading Daisy Jones and the Six because it all revolves around a rock band. And, like, that's not my thing. So if it has to do with rock stars, I usually put it aside. Again, there are exceptions to the rule, but 90% of the time, if it involves celebrities or, like, I don't know, it just kind of depends. It depends on the situation, but if it's a celebrity, specifically a musician, sometimes actresses also don't intrigue me. Famous people, someone who's in the limelight a lot, I usually steer clear from. The third one is kind of, I'm hesitant to say it because, like, I've never read a book with this in it. Okay, so I don't particularly like books with assassins. Like, the whole point of the book is assassins and revenge. I usually steer clear from it. So the huge series that I'm blanking on right now by Sarah J. Maas, Tower of Dawn? No, that's just a book in the series. Whatever that series is called, Throne of Glass. That's what it's called. The Throne of Glass series. It's all about an assassin, and I realize there's a lot more to it, and once I do read something by this author, if I realize that I really like her writing style, I might give it a shot, but if it involves assassins, I usually don't care and don't want to read it. This one's very iffy because some things are very interesting and some things aren't, but 90% of the time, no. I'll say like 80% of the time if it involves assassins, I'm out. The next one is one that is a plot point that it might be my most hated thing on this list, and that is cheating. If I go into a book knowing that there's going to be cheating involved, I don't want to read it. If cheating is part of the plot that I didn't know going into it, but it is a big part of it, depending on how I'm feeling about the characters, I might continue with it, but if I know that there's going to be cheating involved and like the whole plot point revolves around cheating, like I'm not interested. I read a book at the beginning of last year that the whole point of it was this woman and this guy accidentally started emailing back and forth, and she was married, and then they developed feelings, and like nothing good can come from that. And I read it anyway, and I didn't like it. Why did I read it? Because I knew I wasn't going to like it. I can't root for them because I know that it's not going to end well because one of the people involved or both of the people involved are with somebody else, whether it's just they're in a relationship, whether it's they're married, whatever it is. I do not do well with cheating. If cheating's in a book, I'm out. How many times am I going to say I'm out in this video? A lot, apparently. The next one is anything involving westerns or cowboys. Now, cowboys specifically, when it comes to like romance books, I do not do well with like ranch and cowboy farm romances. I just don't care. But like westerns are usually not my thing either. I'm not obsessed with like movies that are westerns either. It's just like a time period that I really do not care about. There are exceptions. For example, my Calamity Jane that just came out by the Lady Janies, it revolves around like a western atmosphere, and I love them more than I hate this plot point, or not plot point, but plot thing. So like I'll get over it and read that one, but 90% of the time, if it's a western or if it takes place on a ranch or is western in any way, I steer clear of those. They just do not intrigue me. There has to be something more in the synopsis that will grab my attention, because usually once I read that, I instantly put it back on the shelves and I don't care. I just don't. And the last one is odd. So it's war. Books that revolve around war are not my thing. And like, I try to steer clear of World War I and II historical fiction books if it's specifically like they are at war and you are you're a soldier at war. If it's like a romance that revolves during wartime, that I'm more okay with. But if it specifically deals with a war, that's just too much for me. I don't like fighting. I don't like gore, and usually when war is involved, gore is involved, and I don't do well with gore either. So those two kind of go hand in hand. But there's just a lot of sadness that comes along with war, which I completely understand. There has to be something more to the plot than the fact that it is a war. If war is like, if you're reading a fantasy book and war is included, okay, that's a little different for me. But if it just revolves around, like the entire book is about war or soldiers or something, I'm usually not intrigued, and that goes back on the shelf as well. So, those are some things that I steer clear from when I am learning about books. These are things that if I read the synopsis, or if I hear someone talking about this book and these things are included, I'm usually instantly no longer interested in it. Now, again, always exceptions to the rule, but these are generally things that I'm just like, they just aren't for me. I'm just not intrigued by these things, and I usually steer clear from them. Because there are way too many books out there for me to be reading things that I don't like. But that's actually all I've got for you guys today. This was a relatively quick one. Again, stay tuned for in a few days when we go over some things that I definitely love in books. There'll be more tropes, or actually any tropes at all, on that list. But let me know down below if any of these things are things that you enjoy. I would love to know why these are topics that you enjoy learning about or you like reading about. This is just my personal preference of, like, if those things are in books, I usually don't read them because I'm intrigued. But if you are, I would love to know why. I find it fascinating. So talk to me down below, or tell me some things in books that you steer clear from, or that you just personally like. Everything in the synopsis, you're also like, I'm good, no thank you. But that's all I have for you guys today, so thank you so much for watching, and if you did like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got my social media down there if you want to follow along on any of those, and I'll see you guys in a few days with a much happier video. Bye!